Hello and welcome to Zenatta Consulting's monthly webinar series. This is for August 2023, Telephony Solutions for Zoho. From Zenatta Consulting, I am Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colt, and let's get right on into it.
All right, Tyler, so this is an interesting one. I think Zoho Telephony is one of those areas where people are just baffled. They don't know what to do. There are so many choices, so many ways to go. We're going to try to demystify that for people a little bit here, kind of simplify things, break it down. We're not only going to talk about Zoho PhoneBridge, but other options with Zoho Telephony, as well as we're going to touch on SMS, which can probably be its own separate webinar. But we'll talk about that because that's kind of deeply linked to the entire thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, we're hoping that you guys will all find this useful. If you do, before we jump to the agenda, make sure to like and subscribe down below, because that really does help us out. And make sure to leave any questions, feedback, video requests down in the comments section. And you very well might be featured on our next episode of Azaz. So without any further ado, let us get right on into our agenda. Alrighty, so we have our agenda laid out for here today. So first section, I'm going to go through an overview of telephony in Zoho kind of across the board. There's more than one way to plug your phone into Zoho, so we like to clarify the differences, the pros and cons. Then I'm going to hand it over to Brett, who's going to walk through an install of RingCentral using the PhoneBridge. PhoneBridge is how most Zoho applications or most phone applications are going to integrate. Then we'll do a quick kind of PhoneBridge in action. I'll be calling Brett while he's in a couple different apps, and we'll kind of show you the different ways that it will pop up and how you can log it. And then like Brett mentioned, we'll do a quick walkthrough of some common SMS options and kind of how to get those going. So with that, let us jump right into our initial overview. Alrighty, so I am here inside of CRM, and the first thing I want to show is just kind of where these records are going to show up, right? So the whole goal here is to integrate the phone system so that when you call a certain lead or contact, that will log into the system, or if they call you, right, it will still log. So here I'm going to jump into a contact. I'm going to go into this example one that I have set up for myself. So here we've just got a contact with a very blurry looking phone number. It had to be a real one so that we could do some of our demos later. And where these calls are all going to show up is under the activities, right? So I can see here that I have an outgoing call to myself, and it has data about when it happened, how long it was. You know, I can fill things out like the purpose and the result being pretty darn important for any like outbound prospecting. And so these are super useful records, right? They can queue up follow-up tasks. They can update the status of that record. You know, they can do a lot of work for you. But as we all know, it is kind of tricky to get sales reps to manually log these calls, right? They want to be on to the next contact. They want to be, you know, driving the next lead towards a deal. So having that expectation that they're going to manually log these is an uphill battle. So what a lot of people want to do is plug in their phone system. And so here I'll kind of show you how to start that process. So up here under setup and under channels, we have a channel for telephony. Now, this will look a little different based on if you're on Zoho 1 or if you're just on like an individual application of CRM. We're going to show it for Zoho 1 here, but it's very, very similar if you're just using a default account and maybe you're not on one of the bundles. So what it's going to show is essentially integrating via PhoneBridge. And I'm going to say click to continue here to kind of move forward. Now you'll see this is going to pop me into a Zoho 1 tab. Again, if this is all in CRM, it's going to look very, very similar. And so there's essentially two options here that it's going to ask you. And this is one of those pages where I like, you know, Brett used the word demystify. This is a confusing page. So what this is asking, essentially, if you already have an account with a PBX or contact center, so that's a RingCentral, that's Dialpad, that's AirCall, Verizon, you know, any of those platforms that allow you to do voice over IP, then you can integrate them with PhoneBridge. Now, what's kind of more confusing is over here on the right, if you don't already have a RingCentral account, for example, it'll say you can build it with Zoho's own built-in contact center. And so if I click on setup now for that, This is actually going to invite you to set up a phone with Zoho's own telephony. So it's called Zoho Telephony. It is not Zoho Voice. We'll kind of cover that in a moment. This is a separate telephony tool that's built just natively on top of Twilio. And to my knowledge, this only integrates into CRM, though we could be mistaken or that could be updated recently. But this is kind of one of their options for telephony. Most people don't use that. Most people come over here and want to use an existing phone service, right? Your sales reps don't want to change their phone numbers or do a big migration, right? Let's just plug in the existing tool. So we can come over here and click on View Marketplace. And so this is the marketplace for PhoneBridge, again, which is one way of integrating your telephony into Zoho products. So advantage of using PhoneBridge here is that if we look, here's really the key to using PhoneBridge. It's the second image here that you'll see live in a little bit. Advantage of PhoneBridge and using a telephony option that connects to PhoneBridge is that it will automatically connect to all of the applications that support telephony. So the big three are kind of CRM, Recruit, and Desk. I know PhoneBridge also goes into, I think, Projects, I think Click, kind of a handful of other applications. And so really a lot of the time you do want to pick an option that's integrated with PhoneBridge so that you're able to access, the various different applications where you might need that telephony information. So a lot of the big players here on the PhoneBridge side, they're all going to be on this page. Zoho Voice, again, is an option that will connect to PhoneBridge. Different from Zoho Telephony. It's a totally separate product, more kind of targeted at, being a competitor to like a RingCentral with kind of more of the, call center features. But so on this list, we'll see, a ton of options, right? RingCentral, a big one, TELUS, a big one. I know that Verizon integrates through here, Amazon integrates through here. So you can scroll. You're going to see there are just a bunch. Of course, this list is searchable, right? So if I were to start searching RingCentral, I'm going to see just those ones pop up. Now, in a moment, I'm going to hand it over to Brett for him to do a walkthrough on actually connecting, for example, RingCentral into PhoneBridge. But we wanted to highlight in this walkthrough that there are many telephony options that are not going to show up here. And that's just because they built their own integration directly to an app rather than using the PhoneBridge API. Now, again, like we mentioned, a lot of the times you want to pick one that's on PhoneBridge. Just because if you're using multiple apps, it's a lot easier, it's going to be supported. But let's say you told me, hey, I'm on Dialpad, I love it, right? It does all this cool AI stuff for me, it's transcribing, it's doing all this work, and I really don't care that it doesn't plug in to other apps. Well, what you'll find is Dialpad is not yet supported on PhoneBridge, but that's not the only place that an integration might live. So if I jump back over to CRM and I go to Setup, and now I go to Marketplace, and this is basically where, third-party providers, Zoho partners, Zoho themselves can build other integrations, right, that might not be available on the PhoneBridge side of the house. Now, I got lucky here, and this is on the front page. But you can also obviously search up here in the top right and see that, even though Dialpad is not supported in the, PhoneBridge interface yet, it is, in fact, supported on the marketplace side. And so this essentially, it's important to kind of go through and take a look, make sure these are going to do what you need, right? So I think this, the Dialpad one, if memory serves, uses a Chrome plugin. But for your use case, you might say, hey, I'm just on CRM. I don't really care if it plugs into Recruit because I'm not using Recruit and I already love Dialpad. Great. Just use this, right? Use one of the existing plugins that's available and don't worry about PhoneBridge. But, for a lot of people, PhoneBridge is pretty important. So we are going to cover that. While I'm in here, another big option that's pretty popular across the, Zoho sphere that's not on PhoneBridge is an application like AirCall. They actually have plugins for CRM and a plugin for Desk directly, so they can actually cover 2 out of the big 3. But we do just like to highlight that, though most people are going to pick one here that's on the PhoneBridge side, and we are going to spend, the primary chunk of the middle of this tutorial session on PhoneBridge, it's not the only way, right? So if you have a telephony provider that you love, check the marketplace as well. You very well might not be out of luck if it is not yet here on the PhoneBridge side. So I think that has covered kind of my disclaimer there around the difference, right, between a marketplace integration where it's going to be specific for an app versus PhoneBridge where you're kind of tying into Zoho as a whole. So I will go ahead now and hand it over to Brett, who's going to do a walkthrough of how to actually configure RingCentral for the PhoneBridge.
All right, Tyler, thank you. As you said, it can be a little confusing, but I think hopefully that helped a little bit. I'm going to jump right in here and kind of start where Tyler did. So if you're in the CRM, in order to get your extension installed, your PhoneBridge installed, you're going to want to hit the settings button. You're going to want to go over to telephony. And if you and then you've got the click to configure here. If you're in CRM, it's going to basically stay right here and give you a screen very similar to this, which is the Zoho One screen, which will basically take you through all of your options. Tyler, I think it's funny you brought this one up. We still, for the life of us, cannot figure out. You have this as a separate add-on. You have Zoho Voice as a separate add-on. I know you touched on it. I think that's one of the things that just confuses people the most when looking at that. So,
and that side uses the PhoneBridge logo, chiming in as the voice from above. Oh, there's my face. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the PhoneBridge logo, even though on the left side is actually where you go to connect something to PhoneBridge. So yeah, a little bit.
That's actually pretty funny. Yes. And the marketplace logo over here actually is not the marketplace, but in fact,
this is not the marketplace. This is
the telephony marketplace. So, hey, it's crystal clear. We don't know why anyone's having any issues with this. Anyway, you're going to go ahead and click into RingCentral, and it's very simple. It's just install. And when you go to install it, it's going to you want to do it for all users or specific users. If you choose specific users, it's, who. So I'm just going to say I just want it to be for the admin user. And you're ready to go. When you click install, it's then going to ask you to log into RingCentral. So you'll want to have your login credentials. You'll want to be set up with RingCentral ahead of time and have this ready to go. So I'm going to click log in here. This basically produces a pop-up which is off screen. So you're not able to see this, but trust me, I'm logging in with my credentials into RingCentral. And once I've done that, you get to choose your phone number that you want to use. So if you have more than one phone number, you choose the number that's going to be your phone line. And then once you've completed your authentication, it will bring you back over here and you are completely set up. One thing you will notice is that down here at the bottom of the screen, you'll see this little phone icon. And if I actually go back over to the CRM again and go to home, this icon was not here before. So now the phone icon is here. And the first time you click into this, it's going to say basically, don't show call pop-up in CRM. No, you're going to want that. So you're probably going to want to turn this to show call pop-up. We're going to demonstrate that here in just a second. We're going to have Tyler call me and you can see what that pop-up looks like. And then you have your various preferences. So one of the things you're going to be asked, and this is going to vary depending on what phone provider you're using, but you can have ring out. So what is that? That's basically saying when someone calls you directly and they're calling through the phone line and it's coming in through Zoho CRM, I want it to ring a separate device. So you could have a soft phone or you can have a custom phone. So a soft phone is just a phone that lives on your PC. You could have it ring that. Or a custom phone is any phone number you want. So maybe you've got a desk line or a VoIP phone that sits on or your cell phone and you want it to ring that. You basically can put that custom phone number in here. And then when someone calls, it's going to actually ring that phone directly. A lot of people like that. They have it go to their cell phone. They've got a headset in. They're good to go that way. A lot of people plug that way when they leave their desk, they're fine because they've still got it always ringing to their cell phone. A lot of people like it to just go ahead and ring to your desktop and they just have a headset on. I will say that depending on what provider you're using, you can oftentimes configure that on the back end. So with RingCentral, one of the reasons we actually recommend it currently, not only because it works very, very well with not only CRM and Desk and Recruit, but it's got a ton of options, such as have the phone ring 3 times on this number and then ring 3 and then automatically forward and ring my cell phone and then automatically forward and ring Tyler's cell phone. you end up with a whole bunch of different things you can do so you'll never missing a call. But that's the ring out option. And then you've got the browser-based option, which is just go ahead and ring my browser. And when I call from my browser and I make calls through my browser, select the phone number you're going to want to use. These are the phone numbers we have configured on this demo account. So if I choose that number, that's going to be the number that my browser makes calls through. By the way, the ring out, I'm calling out through that number as well. You can set up a soft phone, and there are two types of soft phones. There's basically for Mac and PC, RingCentral has an application that is just a phone dialer, and they have got one that is kind of a full-blown if you're using all of the RingCentral things. So the soft phone is just the phone dialer, and the desktop application is one that kind of has Zoom built into it, and it's got messaging built into it, and it's got a whole bunch of stuff. So depending on what application you're using, you can choose which one of those it is. In this case, I'm going to say the browser because that is absolutely the easiest one to do, and I'm going to set the go ahead and set that phone number, and the preferences are saved. And that's all there really is to setting up your telephony provider inside of PhoneBridge. It's pretty much the same for any of them that you're going to use. Again, you don't have to go through any of this if you were using any of them that Tyler had talked about. So for, if for example, you've gone ahead and you're using the dial pad and you are, installing that Chrome extension or that browser extension, you're good to go. That's it. You install it, it's done, and away you go. I will also say that for RingCentral, there are browser extensions you'll probably want to do because you maybe not just don't want to use it with CRM. You'll maybe want to use it anywhere when you're on the web and you want to be able to call a phone number. So you'll want to install that as well. So with that, why don't we take a little bit look at PhoneBridge in action. All right, so now that we have set up RingCentral using Zoho's PhoneBridge application, we're going to show it in action. So basically, one of the things that's important to note here is even though I installed it here in California and Tyler happens to be sitting in Colorado, he can easily just log into the CRM. It logged in as me in this case, or logged in as our demo user. And so it basically travels with you anywhere you go. So you can log into any PC and all your telephony is there. It follows you. You don't have to reconfigure it. You don't have to set it up. It's just going to follow you wherever you go. So whenever you log into the CRM, the PhoneBridge application and your telephony services are going to follow you. So with that, Tyler, let's say you're just kind of bopping around in the CRM and for some reason you randomly decide to call yourself, or there's a client who happens to be named Tyler Colt that's going to call you.
And so that call is kind of connecting through RingCentral right now as we speak. Down here in the bottom right, I now have my call pop. I can go ahead and answer that. And we'll see a few different things on this little section. And so this is really the benefit of PhoneBridge, right? Is that here I can actually see all these different applications. So Recruit, Desk, Begin, Sales IQ, CRM. From in here as well, we can actually click through on the name to that record, right? So if I need to see this contact in particular, I can do so. One of the big things, though, that this plugin allows for with PhoneBridge is, let's say I am on the sales team, right? And I get a call and I happen to be the first one to pick it up, right? So it doesn't always mean that that call should actually be primarily like a CRM activity that needs to happen. Maybe it needs to be a ticket, right? Maybe they call me, I'm on the sales team and I go, hey, you know what? Like, you're really asking about support on this thing that I sold you. I'm happy to make a ticket for you. My support team will follow up. Right? You could just do all of that straight through here. So if I were to go ahead and click that create ticket, it's now going to spin for just a second and actually pull me up into the Zoho desk window saying, hey, we've got this inbound call. I can add my description. I could assign it out to a particular person. I'm not going to do that for now. I could also choose to log it into the CRM. So maybe I want to add some call details. That is going to do a little pop-up. Looks like we've already got those filled in, so it's not going to let me. But again, so across the board here, we're able to essentially manage any type of inbound phone call from within any Zoho app because using PhoneBridge, we can just log it there, right? So it doesn't even actually matter where you pick it up. Now, when I end the call, a couple little things here. It will leave this up if we want to add a description. Under the three dots, we can also edit some additional fields, right? So if I do, after the call, decide, hey, I want to make it a ticket, you don't have to do this during the call itself. you will be given that opportunity on the back end. Lastly, we can also add a follow-up activity like a future call, a meeting, or a task, just all through the little pop-up. So again, really powerful tools, especially for those who might have kind of cross-functional teams. Like a consultant at Zenatta does some CRM stuff, some desk stuff, not really much recruit, right? But so if they were to take a phone call, it's reasonable that they might need to log it in a variety of different places. So yeah, that kind of covers PhoneBridge in action. Again, if you answer the call in desk, same thing. You answer the call in recruit, same thing. It's always going to be that little bottom right pop up that'll give you options across all of the applications.
Yeah, so I mean, all in all, Tyler, it's pretty powerful stuff. I will say, though, that even though you got hundreds to choose from, and even though it all sits on PhoneBridge, you would think that all of these telephony apps would be created equal. They're really not. They all have different features on their back end. Some of them allow for transferring of calls, hold, parking, all these kind of things. And so you got to start looking at their phone apps and what their phone apps do. A lot of companies want to have IVRs, that's automatic where it's coming in, they're calling one number and then that's get transferred to another number. So even though you have dozens and dozens and dozens of choices on there, because anybody can go into the telephone business. I mean, there are too many services that have made it easy to do that. You really do want to kind of play around and
figure out pricing too. Figure out pricing on what you need. Like one, does it have a power dialer? Right, that's a whole discussion. Right, RingCentral does for $40,000. Right, does it integrate with something like PhoneBurner? Right, if you need a power dialer. Big one too is pricing. Right, some of them price higher per month per user with unlimited minutes, and so maybe if you're calling a lot, that's a better deal. Whereas other ones price low per user per month but charge you by the minute. Where if you don't use the phone that much, that might be better. So like Brett is saying, like there's a lot of different elements where these things might be better or worse for you at the end of the day.
Right. There's just so much that you'll want to look at there. And, Tyler was talking a little bit about PhoneBurner and power dialing. But there are a lot of ways to do that. One of the things we didn't show, because it's just kind of, it's universal, is click to call. So if you're in the CRM and you want to call someone, we saw the inbound call, the outbound calls, you just hover over their phone number and click and it calls. And then you can go ahead and log the call when you're done there as well. Also, when you're on mobile and you're in the CRM app and you dial from the CRM app, it's not going to use that provider. It's going to use your mobile provider, but you still can log the call. It's just a small little telephony thing there as well. But I think, Tyler, one of the really big things we get asked about all the time is SMS and how that works. And it can be confusing because oftentimes in the click to call, you also have click to SMS, so you can send an SMS to somebody just using the standard PhoneBridge and usually the standard integration that is set up. But that's not necessarily going to log anything or do anything. So with that, why don't we just kind of quickly touch on some SMS options that are out there? All right. So if I go back into the marketplace where Tyler was earlier, it's funny, you look here and the top applications that we're looking at on the top row, 2 of the 4 are SMS applications, and they happen to be 2 of the best SMS applications that are out there. The first one is SMS for Zoho CRM by Snitch Message Media Smooth Messenger. This is one of the greatest names in the history of all Zoho applications. This product was called Smooth Messenger. And then Smooth Messenger sold it to Message Media. And so it was Smooth Messenger by Message Media. And then Snitch bought Message Media. So now it's Snitch, Message Media, Smooth Messenger. Don't let the long name fool you. This is actually a great SMS tool that you can integrate with Zoho CRM. It sits up as a related list. You're in a contact record. And it's basically like you're looking at your phone. You see both sides of the conversation, all of the SMS messages.
If we jump into screenshots there, we can really show I'd say the best part about this. I think one of the ones below, it's the UI, right? What a lot of these plugins are going to do is they're going to create a module to store SMS records that are going to be inbound or outbound. And so a lot of the difference comes in how pretty do they make it? Right? Because technically they're all pretty much the same, right? They're just going to write to that module and show it. One of the big things with Smooth Messenger that makes us like it a lot is this UI. Basically looks like iMessage. And that's not, BS, bad science on the page right now. That's actually what it looks like. It looks great on the
which
the
is
screen.
nice, super nice. And it doesn't matter who's, you could have multiple phone numbers interacting with this person and multiple text messages, and you will see that as well. Another thing I want to point out here is you're like, well, but I've got PhoneBridge and I've got RingCentral and I want to use RingCentral SMS. You still can, kind of. What you can do is you can, believe it or not, is you can bifurcate a phone number. So you can actually say, I'm going to leave for this phone number, I leave my voice service with RingCentral, and I'm taking all of my SMS service and I'm moving it over to Smooth Messenger. You can do that with any of these providers. So you can have one phone number and the SMS is handled by another company, and the telephony, the voice is handled by yet another company. So just one option here. We actually like these guys a lot. It's a great little service, and so something that is pretty much worth looking into. Yeah. So anyway, Tyler, there's a lot to choose from there. There's another great one called SMS Magic. We like that one a lot. A lot of people use that. That's one that's worth looking at. If you are using RingCentral and you want to stay all in with RingCentral, I think there are like 5 different marketplace applications.
Yeah, a couple different developers have made their own RingCentral plugin. Some free, some charge. Some use the high volume API. So if you're sending a lot of text messages, you'll want to look at those ones. Definitely something to look at when you do the SMS integrations is how many are you sending a day. Different SMS providers are going to be able to handle that better or worse, right? Or might have different tiers of SMS. So like RingCentral has their normal, right, where you can get away with like, a couple thousand a day. Then they have high volume, right, which is where they're expecting you to be blasting them out, right? Transaction updates, shipping notifications, those types of things go through the high volume flow. It's just important to do some of that kind of legwork ahead of time and make sure you've got a tool that makes sense for your needs.
And also when you're looking at your SMS provider, you want to make sure that they support webhooks and automation and all sorts of things, because oftentimes you're setting up something where you're doing a workflow where I just contacted this person and I'm going to send him an email. And if I haven't heard from him in 2 days, then I want to send him a text message. That's another thing that your SMS provider can do. Maybe you're using Zoho Campaigns and you want to connect your SMS into Zoho Campaigns because you've got a whole bunch of things that are happening in campaigns and maybe part of it's SMS. So there's, like I say, it's a whole nother thing for us to go into, but we did want to touch on it. It's for standard telephony. If you're just setting up phones, you're setting up PhoneBridge, you're using a third-party provider, and you want to get some basic SMS, I think those two will help you out, with the Smooth Messenger and the SMS Magic. So anyway, I hope that helped. We want to thank you guys so much for joining us here. If you would like to talk to either Todd or myself or anybody over here at Zenatta, please head over to Zenatta.com and click on Book a Meeting.
On the website is where you'll find complete episodes of our podcast, The CRM Zen Show, where we cover all the news in the world of Zoho every single week. If you want that news delivered to your inbox, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter. And last but not least, we always appreciate when you like and subscribe here on YouTube, because that really does help us out. Make sure to leave all those questions, comments, feedbacks, critiques of Brett's haircut down in the comment section as well, as we do try to read and respond to each and every one of those on a weekly basis. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.